My name is Jackie Marsh. I'm a Professor of Education at the University of Sheffield. I'm leading a project that's funded by the EU Commission, the Horizon 2020 programme, the RISE Call, which is titled Makerspaces in the Early Years, Enhancing Digital Literacy and Creativity. It's a collaboration between 7 countries in the EU, and the aim of the project is to identify how far makerspaces can foster digital literacy and creativity with young children. It's an interdisciplinary and intersector project, so that we have education sociologists, urban planners working together with museum educators, library educators, and importantly staff in makerspaces to look collaboratively at how we can investigate the value of such spaces in early years provision. So we undertook an extensive review of the literature in this area, and that did a number of things. So first of all, it identified the value of makerspaces in educational spaces, both informal and formal learning spaces. But this was primarily with older children, particularly teenagers and so on. There's very little work that's been undertaken in the early years, so that was one of the first things we identified. The second issue that we identified was, in fact, the research evidence suggests that the outcomes of makerspaces and the processes involved in makerspaces align very well to well-established early years principles. So Bertrand and Pascal, it's 2002 now, they did a review of early years curricula in a number of countries internationally, and they identified that there were sort of 4 areas that were generally found in all early years curricula across these countries. The first was an emphasis on child-centred learning. Secondly, the importance of learning through play. Thirdly, an emphasis on social and emotional development of young children and how important that is to foster. And then fourthly, the significance of enabling children to become independent learners at an early age. And when we looked at those 4 principles in early years practice, they were 4 areas that are very much embedded in makerspace approaches. So I think that's very positive, because one of the messages that we can give to early years practitioners is this is not new to you, this philosophy aligns very well. And of course we have lots of making already in early years spaces. There are arts areas, construction areas and so on. Making is not new in early years practice. What is new, I think, is the interdisciplinarity, the merging of STEM with work on narrative, arts, storytelling and so on. So that's new for practitioners. So and I think the other thing that we identified through the literature is that one of the important ways forward on this is not so much a development on the skills, although they're important, but the need to develop a mindset, a maker mindset. It's about developing those dispositions that are important in future employment and leisure, around problem solving and being resilient and so on. That's as important as being able to make a whole range of things themselves. Research indicates that by about the age of 7, children have developed particular attitudes towards STEM subjects, and obviously there are intervention projects that have been undertaken in middle schools and high schools that have been very effective in drawing girls in and black minority ethnic students into these areas. But I think the research also shows that sustaining that interest is sometimes difficult. Although people might feel positively towards science and the subject, they might not necessarily see themselves going into careers. So there's a whole host of work that needs to be done. What we're concerned about in the Makey project is that we begin early. The earlier the better, really, in terms of orientating children towards these subjects. So the project is focused on under 8s, 3 to 8 year olds, and the idea is that through makerspace activities, we might excite young children around the possibilities in relation to STEM. And so, therefore teachers and educators can build on their excitement right through their primary phase. Our emphasis has been entirely on the orientation of individuals. So if you look at some of the research of people who are makers, adult makers, and you ask them, how did you begin in this industry or area, it's because they had a parent who tinkered in the garage and So our emphasis has really been on developing those individual dispositions towards something when you haven't got that in your background.